Thanks for staying with us on Sunrise Daily. First conversation, of course, is coming up right now. We have with us co-convener of Coalition for Revolution, CORE, Mr. Sheni Ajayi. Thanks for joining us this morning.
It's good to be here.
All right, so what's this whole thing about?
Well, I think it's the move for change, and it's a move to actually get every Nigerian to start, thinking and getting involved in how their society and their lives have been managed. And I think we are overdue for this, because when we look at our objective reality, a situation upon which our society has seriously collapsed, we cannot but get concerned and get involved. And we cannot but, again, not trust those who have actually usurped political powers right now. We fought for democratic rights, but we do not have a say in how we are being governed. And we are being misgoverned as we speak. And the objective reality confirms it. On a daily basis is deaths, reports of deaths, that we hear, killings, wars are broken out in several areas. Massive poverty is the order of the day. The youth have no future, and we can keep on going on and on. And the facts are just too there, are just too concrete. And we have to be very factual that right now, the objective conditions for the massive involvement of everybody, because that essentially needs to be cleared. The time revolution actually implies that everybody is involved, in how they are being governed.
Well, don't you think that's what's giving, some, people, especially government, and a number of other people concerned that, look, you can't use the word revolution because the dictionary meaning of revolution implies forceful takeover.
No, revolution it has several meanings to several persons. The police may have their own definition and several other persons, but the general interpretation of a revolution is a massive inflow of the mass of the people into the arena of politics. It is a process of questioning, the way they are being governed.
When you say massive inflow of people into the arena of politics, how do you achieve that with mass protests?
Well, when you say mass protest, is that, well, everybody has a right to complain, which is what a protest is. They have a right to complain about the poverty. They have a right to complain about the killings. They have a right to complain about, their society not moving forward. They have a right to complain about, denial of basic fundamental rights, and the list is endless, really. So that justifies that grounds. So, and I think it's necessary for us to appreciate that we have a right to think, and we have a right to actually cry in several instances.
So what do you expect, Mr. Ajayi? What do you expect this protest, so to speak, to achieve?
It has already started achieving what it's intended to. It's already presented, the demands, set of demands, to the public space. It has already formalized, the fact that people are not, in agreement with what is going on. So, and I think that, is the first success of this movement. If they do not feel threatened, and that's why I have to respond to that. Those, while we are in poverty and in pains, this a minority actually benefiting from what is actually happening. It's those minority that are actually complaining. But we are not going to go to their level. We are going to keep the balls on the ground, face the issues as it has been posed to you by the community. That is what we are actually emphasizing, and that's why we are giving them all those demands. We want an economy for all. We want a society that works for all. We want an end, to the massive killings. We want an end to the wars. And the objective condition, so to the extent that this regime is not addressing any of those fundamentals that is presenting itself today, to that extent, we are not going to have peace, and we are not going to move forward.
All right, Mr. Ajayi, you're the co-convener for Coalition for Revolution. Yeah. Am I right?
Yeah.
Now, the term revolution in your group's name, has the government ever taken you up on that term?
Nobody has ever taken us. You can name your child revolution if you like. It's a free society. People are free to actually think. And I think that that's one of the points that this is supposed to achieve. People have the right to associate. People have the right to develop. To the extent that you are actually non-violent.
So what do you make of the government or the DSS this time around? Let's be specific, saying that he was arrested. That's Mr. Omoyele Sowore was arrested because of plans to, as it were, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, toppled government, revolution and all that. What do you make of that?
It's ridiculous, really, because when we know what people will say when they are actually cornered, and particularly when they are being cornered by people, fighting with ideas, and actually presenting the issues as it is supposed to be. To those who are actually responsible for our state, this kind of conversation is not supposed to be allowed. And the whole essence of the revolution now is to make this conversation, these are difficult conversations, is to present these conversations on the side of the masses. The narratives over the years has been on the side of a few elites. And we have seen how it has ended. 20 years of democracy, 16 years we agree, PDP running the country, objective reality. 4 years, it took 4 years for APC to ruin it beyond the level of the PDP. Now, we are the victims here. The first set ruined it, the second set ruined it more. We are the victims here. We have a right to speak. We must speak.
Okay, another
issue. We're talking about 200 million people now.
Right.
Where are we going? With just a few, with just a few elements.
Okay, so Mr. Ajayi, another issue which the government raised is asking the group, as it were, to come forward and identify themselves. In fact, a statement that was released yesterday said that the group should come out, have a face, so that so that Nigerians, and I'm taking the quote, so that Nigerians can be fully aware in whose name this revolution is being proposed and who the beneficiaries may be.
Coalition for Revolution is a coalition of organizations, civil society organizations, political parties, and individuals, within, the civil society, who have actually reached that peak upon which they can no longer continue. We can no longer saying that we can no longer continue. It's been on. It's been issuing statements. It's been issuing. Its meetings are open. Its meetings are. It's the full gear of everybody. The CDHR Secretariat is there where it holds its meetings. So I don't know where. And when we look at all the organizations involved, we know that these are organizations that have their roots in the struggle for this current democracy that we currently have, for the current democratic rights that we have. So if you are now saying that they are the ones that are now, I really don't know. If you have an insurgency, you should be capable of saying, okay, this is where they are training military men or something, or training the military. You don't have that. You have intellectuals sitting down and complaining. That's for how long are we going to the objective facts are there.
Are those intellectuals also a part of this?
Yeah, it's an open movement. The meetings are open, the invitations are open to everybody.
Right.
And why we are very happy now is this. The movements have been growing. Nobody would have believed that with how many months ago, since June, the first discussion, which was an open discussion since June, nobody would believe that as we speak today, that it will not have, get to this extent. But it's clear that overwhelming majority of Nigerians are totally frustrated, and that is account for why this movement is growing. As we speak, we have some of the largest movement on social media. So we are not, and it's everybody is free. This is a national movement, a movement without any religious connotation, without any ethnic connotation. So what I will say, we are talking issues of class and ideology right here.
Now, one of the one of the things that a number of organizations, the CNG, Coalition for Northern Region, and even the River State government have said is, look, from what Kaude also said, the organization doesn't particularly have a face, and it's not one moment. It's not believable. According to the Northern, group, your objectives are not clear, and it's not. It doesn't have a goal to the end. Okay, so we protest, and after the protest, what comes next? So these are some of the issues that.
First and foremost, let us clear some things which I think the media does. You said a Northern group now. It's not true. We shouldn't be ascribing to people what they are not. A person claimed You know, it's not fair to be ascribing.
Well, you know that anyone
please,
listening to you right now would also say you
no,
are
I don't mind. There's no
institution.
problem. But it is necessary for people to speak on what they stand. We speak on what we stand on, and that's why we say, you know, we are not going to assume anything, you know, because it's still a democratic process. We are in the process of explaining issues, you know, of how, you know, we are where we are today, you know, and what can be done. That is essentially what we are doing. So we do not say we are, you know, we do not assert a power we do not have. So, and I think it's necessary. So if anybody wants to speak, don't claim you are speaking on the behalf of any ethnic nationality, because you are not. And that's part of the fraud that individuals do. As regards Rivers State, it's also entitled to.
You're not addressing the real issue. The real issue is the question that people are asking. So you protest, and then people know, okay, you are protesting. After that, what comes next?
First we present the issues.
What are the issues?
Which is the protest, you know. People have a right, you know, to know and organize. And then, you know, other things proceed. A movement of this nature, you know, takes a while to actually acquire, you know, the necessary strength. A conscientization process is what is stage we are in right now, on which people start, you know, that process of questioning things, you know, and taking up the issues as it affects them. Because we have passed the situation for which, you know, people will just be watching, and the issues that affect the communities are not being raised concretely. As we speak, people are currently dying in several parts of the country, being killed. You have the right to query the security apparatus. What are you doing? What is responsible for this? We can't just watch, because you see, when one killing takes place and nobody is brought to book, another one follows, the next one follows, and we have a chain reaction. That is what and we claim that we are paying taxes, and there are some persons are in charge of this security apparatus. If we are paying taxes in our communities and what we paid money for is not being, we have a right to query you. Come, we are saying, look, these elements are not fit to manage our security. Transform it, Mr. Gentleman. Let's transform this. These are the fundamentals. We look at our schools. We can no longer go to school. All forms of conditions have been set to prevent the youth from going to school. Please, we need to address this.
What kind of conditions are preventing you?
Well, the fees, for instance. You know, when we went to school, I don't want to bore you with that, but when we went to school, we know how merit is the case that allows you to in the university. Today, I personally don't even know how they choose, you know, the way, you know, people get to school, because the final analysis is going to be how much your parents have that will decide what level. Then again,
how do you mean? Do you mean with private institutions or with public institutions?
Public institutions have increased their fees. The students are complaining. Student unionism has been outlawed on a large area of the campuses. You know, students have a right to organize. Student activists are out on the streets.
So is that the fault of the federal government or the school management?
It's a combination. The federal government, look, the responsibility stops on the leadership, political leadership. So when you have this problem, it's for a regime that insists that the universities, the tertiary institutions must work well, you know, will not tolerate what is happening there, will not claim it doesn't know what is happening on the campuses. On the wages, minimum wage today there was an agreement, and even in the pittance that is agreed, today we are having complications. The minimum wage in Nigeria should not be less than $500 equivalent. But even at a mere, you know, point it's not being implemented. And how do you want to end poverty without incrementing wages and without better working conditions?
The Nigeria's legal tender, is it dollars or naira?
Of course, we should know that within the current context, all currencies actually are related, you know, and you have to actually use that to actually see the true value of the amount that people are being paid. When you compare that, people can know how much they are being cheated. So you cannot just say that, well, we have increased your salary by 30,000 naira, and you not compare the value of the currency, you know, as at when it was 18,000 naira, whether it is equivalent. So we need to be very factual when we are presenting positions. And the reason why we emphasize this is to see that there is a serious depreciation in the take-home. And when you talk about poverty, when they say that the average take-home of the average family lives on less than $1 a day, this is the implication. So we need to be very careful as regards that.
I'm still a little flustered by some of the submissions that you have made, because it's difficult to really concretize some of these issues that you've raised. You will remember, for instance, that Occupy Nigeria, was spontaneous in, I think, 2012, and at the end of the week, that was it. Nothing else happened. So what's the assurance anyone has listening to you right now that this that you are proposing is going to produce anything?
Well, you see, there are certain things that needs to be looked at when we're interpreting our history. There are some things I may not want to actually, may not have time to actually address. But what we have seen within the current context is that this is going to go far longer than that, because this is an agitation. It's an agitational movement, from which people who are victims, north, east, west, south, are coming together, to actually speak with one voice. That process is what, this is all about. It is democratic, it is peaceful, and it is the first major attempt since a long while to integrate everybody within a single family and, maintain, its agitation, both in the media and off the media. It's a long process. Now, when you compare it with 2012,
okay,
what happened in 2012 is that the masses of this country, of this country, came out en masse. But some individuals, usurped that, took power riding on the backs of those agitations, and betrayed that movement.
Okay.
The essence of this, the essence of this is to put the issue, because when you do not concretize what you are fighting for.
Let's say one of the issues that this brings up is the legality or otherwise of what you're talking about. So we have a legal practitioner with us, in our Abuja studio. Johnny Agim is there with us in Abuja, as well as the Vice Chairman, Buhari Media Organization, Mr Abdullahi. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I'd like to begin with you, Mr. Agim. So what's your take on all of these? Is this legal or illegal, movement or agitation?
Good morning, my brother, and then good morning, Nigerians. Well, I think we need to first and foremost situate the issues here. The question is, are Nigerians entitled to protest? Yes, it is their fundamental right to protest and agitate for anything that they feel is not in their interest, particularly when it concerns the issue of governance. So that some persons have decided to protest in whatever form they chose to, against what they think is the policies of government that is not beneficial or is not in tandem with the promises of those in government, I don't think they have any, the government has any right to stop them from protesting. So I think that is all I'll say for now. Perhaps in the course of our discourse, we'll be able to now look at the issues in nitty-gritty. But first and foremost, what needs to be stated clearly is that Nigerians are entitled to protest whenever they feel the government is not doing what they are supposed to do.
Perhaps one of the contentions that a number of people have in different quarters is the term revolution. How do you say that, Mr. Agim?
Okay. Well, if you look at the word, I'm not unmindful of the fact that when you use the word revolution, revolution means to take over, to overrun, to change. And which, of course, I think we equally need to understand that even the government itself has changed the status of Nigerians. The government came in and they promised Nigerians a lot of things, and they have changed their status. We've changed, of course, as it is right now, it's no longer news that Nigeria is not the poverty capital of the world. So Nigerian status have changed from the strongest economy in Africa to I don't know where we belong to right now. So that in itself is a revolution. So, but I think if we want to look at it strictly and going by the position of the security agencies, I feel that the actions of the security agencies is premature at this stage, because if government itself and the constitution that the government swears to uphold has guaranteed Nigerians the right, and in fact, if you look at the chapter 2 of the constitution, which deals with the political fundamental objective of government. The government is meant to promote and encourage freedom of association. So if these persons have come together in whatever name they call themselves, which I'm not here to defend, and have decided to say, you know what, we want to choose a day where we'll go out and lay our complaints, because I think what protest is all about is to come out and tell government in clear terms that this is our demands, and this was what you promised us, and this is what we are getting. So we want you to do X, Y, Z. I don't think those people they are wrong. And in fact, the Constitution provides and equally ensures that the government should provide security for those persons who want to agitate. So at this stage, going about 2 or 3 days ago to arrest whoever is seemed to be the face of this protest march, I think is very premature.
Mr. Abdullahi, you have listened to Mr. Agim, his submission. In fact, he says that the government is meant to promote this sort of agitation and not, as it were, stifle it. So how do you respond to Mr. Agim?
Well, Kairi, thank you for having me. If you notice, towards the end of his statement, he actually mentioned the word protests. He didn't actually mention the revolution. You see, the thing is, let us really not dangle around the issue. The issue is here. Omoyele Sowore actually called for a revolution. He has shot a number of videos and interviews from some sister stations. And before I actually watched those videos, I was also a little bit skeptical. There is no doubt what he said about the guaranteed freedom of to associate, to also protest, you know, for or against this government. It's there, yes, as long as it's not violent. You have that freedom. But when you call for a revolution, and I've watched an interview, you know, where Sowore really meant to actually take over the government, to change a regime forcefully. And he was asked on point blank by a presenter in a sister station, Arise News, Arise TV, you know, Dr. Reuben Abati asked him, you know, what do you aim to achieve? And he said he wants the government to be taken over by the people. And in fact, he was even asked, what was the ultimate objective? And he said, you will see it when it happens, and they are not backing down. They will change it. So all the lawyers that are coming, senior lawyers, I'm a lawyer too, that are coming to actually restrict or give a narrow interpretation of what Sowore did, it's really hypocritical. Because with due respect, you have to look at things how they are. The security of the nation, Nigeria is not a banana republic, as some of them has actually alluded to. That is why we have a system. We have a security organization. They will listen and they will have to dissect. They will have to find out, do this group really meant what they were advocating, or is it a protest? But from his utterances, and he said he has been calling for revolution since after he lost the election. We have a democratic system of government, you know, in place, which was voted into power. And he himself, the convener, was actually one of the participants, and he lost the election. Now, if you are dissatisfied with how the government is being run, yes, you can come and protest, or you can even join the government and offer solutions, you know. He was asked in that interview, what were your solution on the insecurity? He said he cannot say it now, that he's not there to give solutions, that his solutions were contained when he was actually contesting for an election. But now he just wants a change of government. Now, you see, or the third alternative, you wait for the next cycle of election and then try and sell the idea that the government has failed. That is what you should do.
Mr. Abdullahi, you were making a point the other time, and a number of other people will still contend that, look, the issues that are confronting, you know, the nation, you know, calls for all kinds of reactions. This is the way some people chose to react to the issues. But so what do you say? It doesn't seem many people that the primary issues, the primary agitations, the primary concerns of Nigerians are being addressed. You know, for instance, in 2015, the government promised change, and as we speak, to many people, we haven't even crossed the change line,
and we're not talking next level. How would you react to them?
Well, simple, Ayo. You see, for example, the much touted insecurity problem challenges in Nigeria. Do we have insecurity challenges? Yes, we really do have it. You know, is it a new thing? No, it's not a new thing. Is it only Nigeria that is facing insecurity? No. Don't forget, when this government came in there, where there was an insurgency in the Northeast, the government, to a large extent, has tackled that. You know, those Boko Haram insurgents were reduced to, you know, some splinter attacks here and there. Then we had the issue of the headsmen farmers clashes around the Middle Belt area, you know, especially worsening in a worsening situation in Benue. Now, don't we have a relatively peace in Middle Belt? Then the Kaduna, Abuja kidnapping saga, then the Zamfara and Katsina banditry come in. And you see now, for example, from Abuja to Kaduna, we have seen a relatively peaceful area there. I drive almost on a weekly basis to Kaduna, and the road has been free for some time. The police is working. The government has introduced new issues, tactics that they want to use. For example, the community policing and things like that. Now, yes, in the southwest, there is another form of insecurity. The kidnapping has extended to the southwest. And then all of a sudden, people are actually crying. But the government is doing things, trying to do things differently to tackle each of these case. Now, is it right for people to say that the government is not doing anything? I think that is absolutely not fair on the side of to the government. They are trying their best, but more importantly, what have we contributed as citizens to this country? The country belongs to all of us, and the security is a responsibility for all of us, not the government alone. Yes, the government must lead, but we too, we have our own share of our responsibility to contribute. Now, on the economic front, we know what the government has made on the ground when it came in 2015, and that is actually the catalyst of all the problems, the security challenges we are having. We had governments for the past 16 or more years that have actually been, you know, lavishing money without building critical infrastructure. So because the money was in circulation, people were comfortable, and, you know, free money, you don't have to earn it. But under this administration, you cannot earn until you work. You will not get free money. And that is what pushes a lot of people. Yes, agreed. The unemployment level, you know, is really high, especially among the youth. But, you know, it is the decades of lack of investment in infrastructure that will have otherwise provided employment opportunities for our youth generation. We didn't invest in this country, and suddenly the decay, you know, didn't happen today. And building it back, correcting the errors, will really take time. And that is what we have to be patient. And that is the change that this government promised. They promised that change, and it is happening. And people are not really, they don't really like this change. Some actually are exhibiting that tendencies in the criminal activities we're seeing, either kidnapping and banditry, while others are calling for revolution. Now, this is my gross with this set of people. Why can't you join hands and see how to propose solutions for the government to do that? Why will you know, you contested an election just very recently and lost. And you said, he was asked in that interview, and he said he is here as a former presidential candidate. So he has a team that he can work with, that Nigeria will give him a chance. You know,
Mr. Abdullahi, we'll still get to some of these issues you have raised. I remember, I think it was in 2014, where now President Muhammadu Buhari, who was a former presidential candidate then, also led a rally. At that time, it was called Salvation Rally. But we'll get to that. But let's go back to this issue of revolution, the term revolution that has taken the space. I mean, I've seen different definitions of the term revolution. And this is for Mr. Agim. Let's take a look at this term revolution. In fact, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka put out a quote or statement yesterday saying that beyond this term revolution that has been touted around, that Mr. Sowore, in fact, did not imply that there was going to be anything violent. Let's take this quote that says, a deployment of alarmist expressions such as treason, anarchist, public incitement, etc. by security forces have become so predictable and banal that they have become meaningless. Nothing that Sowore has uttered, written, or advocated suggests that he is embarking on or urging the public to engage in a forceful overthrow of government that's coming from Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka. So he has said this, but the DSS is saying the term revolution is why they are arresting him. So is this lawful? How does the DSS have backing from the law to do this?
Well, you see, like I said earlier on, I've always been saying it, and I think I won't overemphasize that fact, that the actions of the security agencies is premature. So long as the Constitution provides for the right of people to agitate in whatever form, in as much as they do not carry arms against the state, it is their fundamental right. And in this, all of these, I've watched several commentaries and videos that I've seen shot online. And of course, I don't think for anybody who is a student of history, Sowore shouldn't be strange, shouldn't be a strange name to Nigerians. He started this all the way while he was still in the University of Lagos and carried it all through. In fact, even when he was campaigning to be the president of this country, all he was talking about is not different from what he's saying now. And if at all he had said he wanted to take over the government, we all know how these things work. The government has the forces, they have the security to curtail anyone who takes the laws into his hands. And of course, in 2012, we had a similar instance where that in itself, Nigerians came out en masse to agitate for the increment in the fuel price. And at the end of the day, when the government backed down its plan, what did Nigerians do? Nigerians went back to their, everybody went back to their homes. If, what's his name, Sowore was calling for a revolution or whatever it is that they feel that the policies of government have not been favorable to the majority of Nigerians, I think what the government should have done is to first and foremost you see, there's what the government itself, there's a lexicon that was introduced into our national vocabulary some few years ago when some persons' homes were being, security officials marked themselves, and then they went into some persons, I don't want to mention name here, and they burst into homes and arrested some few persons, carried out sting operations, and then ensured that these persons are monitored. The government, from what I'm seeing, it seems that the security agencies in Nigeria are becoming too jittery. They're becoming too, as it were, they have actually lost ideas. Because there's nothing wrong in monitoring these persons. Today is the day that they said they wanted to come out. Let the security agencies should put in their security agencies and monitor the security agencies to charge him to court. And when you charge him to court, what are you going to charge him to court for? There's what we call actus rea and mens rea in law. The actus rea is the actual action. If you are arresting someone because somebody said, I am going to slap you, and the person has not slapped you, it's not an offense until the person carries out the action. And in this instance, are we saying government should not be proactive? They should be proactive. But what should they do? Monitor these persons, put their men on these persons, and ensure that when anything goes wrong, you pick these persons, and then, of course, by so doing, you would have quelled the actions, as it were. So I think, to a large extent, the government are the ones who are becoming alarmists. Going by the statement of the learned Nobel laureate Professor Soyinka, they are the ones who are causing the agitations right now. There's nothing wrong in anybody coming out. I could, on my own, feel that, okay, fine, I feel that a particular policy of government is not favorable to me, and I organize a group of friends, and then we'll all go out and then we'll carry out these peaceful protests. And the Constitution says the police are meant to provide security. Let's not take our eyes from it. The police are meant to provide security for anybody who has any form of agitation or disagreement with government. It is only when they go violent that the police can now move in and arrest those people to forestall any peace, breakdown of law and order. But if that has not been done, please, let us not begin to look at issues and try to, if they got on this score, government have scored a 0.
Mr. Geum, one of the things that would recall, well, the public relations officer of the DSS saying, Mr. Peter Funaya, it says that, and I quote, these threats, first it says the DSS is charged with the responsibility of managing, curtailing, containing and eliminating threats against national security. He says, and I quote, "These threats include threats of sabotage, threats of subversion, threats of terrorism, and of course, ethnic agitations, separatist agitations, economic sabotage, and others." You don't think any of these is already, I mean, they are threats. What do you think?
My brother, with all due respect to Mr. Afunai, I know him is a good, a perfect gentleman. Well, of course, you know how it is. You must, at some point in time, lean to the cries and calls of your paymasters. On this call, the DSS got it wrong. In fact, the fact that it's the DSS, if it was even the police, you can say, okay, these ones are uniform security agencies. But these ones, they are DSS. They can infiltrate. All that one will expect them to do is to carry out a sting operation, infiltrate this group, and monitor their activities. Because if you stop people from coming out to protest, what you would do is that unwittingly you allow these people to begin to carry out all kinds of sinister moves, and which of course might now lead to a proper breakdown of law and order. It's even good, they should even score Showore high for coming out to say we want to protest, and these are our reasons for protesting against the government. If they had come out to say that, we expect that the security agencies should put their men on them, monitor their activities, ensure that the guys who want to take advantage of it and cause mayhem and cause breakdown law and order are not, do not infiltrate their ranks. That is what one would expect a government and the security agencies that are up and doing to do, but not to go and arrest him. So if tomorrow someone else, Mr. B, decides to say, okay, fine, I'm protesting against the fact that the government had promised us that by 2019, the refineries will work. And by this time, in 2019, we have not seen anything in that aspect. What will happen? The government will go and arrest him. We are not in a, for crying out loud. Democracy, the simple definition.
Mr. Agim, if I may, let's come back to Lagos and bring in Mr. Sheni Ajayi, who is the co-convener for the Coalition for Revolution, still with us in our Lagos studio. Now, you've listened to our guests in Abuja, and then in the light of what has happened, the arrest, the reactions, I mean, you have Professor Wole Soyinka reacting, you have Femi Falana also reacting, and a host of other people reacting, some for, some against. What has this done to the resolve of your group to agitate, to go out and protest?
It has only strengthened us the more. And I also want to quickly clarify position. Omoyele Sowore is not the leader or the leadership of, it's not even the leadership of Coalition for Revolution. His organization is a member as well as other organizations. You have the CDHR, you have the NCP, you currently have the NIM and various other organizations coming up to say no. So we are more than happy, you know, and more resolved that we will see this thing through. That's one part. Two, it's also very, very not correct or not appropriate for us to personalize issues. This is not a fight between Sowore and Buhari or anything like that. Let us leave personalization. This is about what our interests are. This is about the people. You get? So we need to focus on that. Now, whether there was an election, I don't want to actually go into such a discussion because it's off the point. The key point is, do people have a right to think? We have. Do people have a right to opinion? They have. Now, if you have a government that is now picking people up for their expressions, you know, if you have right now the convergence point, which is the National Stadium, has been militarized, you know, with soldiers, you know, preparing to shoot people. So when you have this situation, it tells you that there's a problem. And it confirms to us that there is a problem in this country. A problem is when people say the truth. You know, if you have nothing to hide, then definitely, you know, you don't need, you know, it's the cheapest thing to do. You know, if people are not in serious agony, then why should you need to bring in soldiers and be threatening to kill people and picking people in their homes?
Who made the threat to kill people?
Yeah, that's the order, you know, being given, you know, and that's what we also confirmed is happening in the center of Galvin today, which is the National Stadium, you know, where the procession is supposed to begin. They have militarized the place and even along all the routes. So we know what is happening. We know what is happening. Now, what we also emphasize, letting people see, is that if you can pick people for mere opinion, it tells you a lot. the campaign against military dictatorship in this country started, with the idea that we can actually have a different Nigeria. And that is what is actually happening right now. I will not allow it to be unduly ethnicized, because this has no ethnic, this is a united movement of Nigerians, advocating for proper integration of this country. This is a democratic movement that is above any form of religion. So we throw aside that. Any society that wants to move forward has to abandon prejudice.
Okay, so let's take a look at your track record. Before now, have you done anything? Has there been, can you just chronicle some of the things you've done before now?
We can tell you a lot, but I don't want to bore the house. But the Coalition for Revolution became, solid in June. We have had some series of developments.
That's 2 months ago.
June, no. So June of 2018.
All right.
With the evolution of all forms of revolutionary tendencies developing amongst the youth. You see several, you have had the Not Too Young to Grow, you have had several. And people are very, restive within the past period. So it's within that period that this movement actually developed and grew to where it is today. So it's just part of that movement, that agitation. Nigerians, both within and also in the diaspora, are actively involved in all what is going on. So when we want to talk about agitations, currently there is the emergence of a coalition of community organizations taking up community issues within, as regards the electricity crisis that we have.
The reason I ask, if I may, is that, the government is saying, how about the group go through another mode, go through elections? So I'm saying, how do you respond to that? The government saying, you know what, wait for another 3 years or 4 years, as the case may be, and participate in elections, gather your people together, and do this democratically.
We are not going to actually fall for the trick, because if you do not eat for 3 years, you are going to pass away. If you do not have a job for 3 years, we know what it implies. And that is why we are saying that, look, we cannot leave our fate in the hands of politicians. In Lagos State, for instance, there are just 40 assemblymen. Immediately they are voted into power, immediately they change their phones, and immediately they are closed, they regulate how you have access to them. Whereas the roads in the community are not going to be tarred for the next 4 years. The social benefits for the community are not going to be added. So what the thing now is this: if the communities and everybody start saying, Mr. Man, you are supposed to be representative here. These are your responsibilities. If you don't do that responsibility, we must remove you. We are going to exercise to the fullest, even the policies of recall. So people don't think, this is a process that, when you commence a process, because we are now, what is now at stake is the entire political class. If you are incapable of ruling or delivering in the interest of the people, you have to go. There are democratic conditions, inbuilt. And those who make it impossible will be exposed in the process of this activity. This regime has been exposed by picking Showore. This regime has been exposed that really it's a package of deceit. Again, everything about this regime.
Again, we do not want to. You may want to moderate the use of the word regime, but let's go back to Abuja to speak with Mr. Abdullahi, the Vice Chairman, Buhari Media Organization. How do you react to some of these issues? I mean, on the one hand, is the presidency saying, look, the only way you can change government in Nigeria is to go through the polls. And some of the issues he has raised, I mean, the experience of a number of people. How do you react to that? Mr. Abdullahi. Okay. All right. We'll get back to him in a bit. But one of the things that I would love very much to ask you is, okay, so over the years, some of the experiences that a number of people have had is that when such protests occur, they are designed to be peaceful. But along the line, it goes south. Some, other elements take over, in the whole process. And they take advantage to do things that are not expected of them. What's the plan to make sure that you remain as peaceful as you intend?
First and foremost, it's necessary to know that our protests have always been peaceful. The 2012 is another example. And the security forces are to do their job. It's part of what we are saying, advocating for, that, look, you all need to do your job. If a group of persons are protesting, your responsibility is to provide security and make sure that things do not go south, as in accordance with what you said. But even when we put things, even in the general context, things have actually gone south. If we have had a functional police security system, we wouldn't have crime, we wouldn't have kidnapping, we wouldn't have unresolved murders and things like that. We will have a proper society. And this is what all these things all about, is to get everybody to get concerned and start asking the proper question. And
again, let me re-emphasize that, because ultimately the responsibility of the function of peace is not just for the police, it's for us as well. So yeah, again, I'm asking, maybe in precise terms. So how do you ensure? Is there any plan to ensure that the people who you have invited for this gathering, they're peaceful? What's the plan?
Well, generally, I will emphasize that we are actual peace-loving persons. The movement has always been that. And we are emphasizing, even the short video we issued out yesterday was to make sure that anybody coming to our protest, we do not want to see any hard objects, even plastic bottles, we don't want to see it. This process is first the process of liberating the mind and getting people organized and assembly there, because the agitation is going within the communities. And right now, I can give you examples of communities where agitations are going on. First, on the electricity issue, several communities are actually in rebellion to the issue of estimated billing, and they are taking up, the regime. Several communities are taking up their assemblymen as regards them not delivering anything, and several communities are going to take up, their senators and things and all members. So nobody to personalize it, because every elected official is actually on trial right now. That is the whole essence of this movement. And you see, we need to actually get concrete. That is what we are actually emphasizing.
Let's go back to Abuja and speak with Mr. Abdullahi. So you've listened to some of the issues that he's raised, especially, given what the presidency has said about, look, the only way we change government in Nigeria is through the polls. But then the experience a number of people have had is that once people get into power, they're unreachable. And consequently, they can't make the kind of change they desire to make. How do you react to that?
The thing is this, actually. Change of government, it really has to be, through the polls, because we have gone past any kind of revolution or change of government through any other means, except actually through another cycle of election. That is true, what the presidency or what the president said. You see, but I want us to have things right. Let us establish these facts, because you see, suddenly, all the organizers, everybody is trying to change what really happened. Everybody is calling this revolution that they were calling it before the state security actually comes in. They are calling it now protest. Even my colleague here in the studio he's calling it protest. But if it was protest, I don't think the government will have had any problem with it. I mean, there were protesters almost every day on the streets of Abuja. The IMN that was recently proscribed protested for more than 2 years until it became violent. That was when governments actually came in. There were several groups of protesters against the government or pro-government. Nobody has said nobody should protest. But this one is a revolution. And I dare to say, even though I heard what the guest at the studio said, that Shaure is just one part of the mobilizers or the leaders. But he has done a great disservice to you. If that is not the same objective that you have with him, because I heard him, I listened to him. He said the objective, the ultimate objective is to change the government, and to give it back to the people. And he said he is ready with his team. He was a presidential candidate, that he is ready to take over. Now, that is, if you don't want, how can you not expect a responsible government to come
Mr. Abdullahi, if I could just quickly ask you this one. He has said that it's going to be a takeover of government, given that all apparatus of state resides with the government, and with, of course, what Mr. Geum said the other time, that it's not possible for any human being or individual to take over. How do you think that is going to happen when the entire apparatus of state resides with the government and the people that are there? One last thing before we let you go. So is the police aware of this protest you are having today?
All our protests are formal. The declaration for the movement was signed by myself, and I think we have that right to actually, it is not sure as it was cleared, because they are just making a contrary, it's a movement, a coalition of Nigerians concerned, and planning on taking action, and we have a growing movement, in our hands, right. And essentially what the intentions were have actually been achieved.
Right. So the protest is still going on.
The protest is going on.
Okay.
The discourse has been provoked. Whether anybody likes it or not, we are going to discuss, how we are being governed, and we are going to take actions to make sure that we have a better life for all, not for a few.
All right then, Mr. Sheni Ajayi, co-convener of Coalition for Revolution. Thank you very much for
being good to be here
on Sunrise Daily. I will go back to Abuja. Mr. Geum, let me quickly ask you this. Some of the issues that have been raised, by Mr. Abdullahi sitting right next to you, it seemed like the DSS or anyone is in order. How do you react to that?
I didn't even respond to you when you actually... Respond to you now? Hello?
Mr. Kayode.
Go ahead, Mr. Abdullahi.
We can hear them.
Hello?
Mr. Abdullahi, please go ahead. The question we asked the other time about, how do you explain some of the issues that were raised earlier? Please go ahead.
Now, you see, you asked, about, how do we know that he's going to do what he claimed that he is going to do? If you are staring at a gun, whether it is empty or loaded, do you act whether in trying to duck or trying to actually dispossess the person holding the gun at your pace? Because you don't know whether it is loaded or not. That is one. Secondly, when a revolution like this starts, you never know where it will lead to. It may start like a protest, like they're claiming now that this protest is no longer a revolution. But we know the beginning. We may know the beginning, but we don't know where it will end. Examples were abound still. The Tunisian example, the Algerian, the Sudan, and even they themselves have actually made reference to those things. Let me give you a possible scenario about what will happen if they continue on that lane. Today, they may protest, and before you know it, if someone, God forbid, slumped and was killed in that protest, whether in Kano, let's say a Southerner and a Christian was killed in Kano in a counter-protest, because some people will really come out to support the government in another protest. Or in Lagos, a Northerner is killed and a Muslim. Do you know what it will turn out to be? People will say, before you know it, religion will come into it, tribal sentiments will come into it, and Nigeria will be on fire. And this is exactly how revolution normally starts. Before you know it, the security services will be overwhelmed. They will be unable to stop what will come. You see, so that is why a stitch in time saves a nine. That is why the action taken by the government, by the security agencies right now is the right action. When someone tries to commit, a crime, whether he was about to commit or he's in the process of committing it, the responsible thing to do by the security agency is to make an arrest and also charge the person to court when they gather the evidence. At least that will actually cool down the tempers. And on a final analysis, you see, all the things they mentioned, which were the objectives, if you look at them, they really, beside the insecurity I've analyzed earlier in the program, the others are really not things that can call for a revolution. Protest, yes, good and fine. But revolution, change of government.
Okay, then. All right, Mr. Abdullahi, thank you very much for being a part of this conversation this morning. We've had Vice Chairman, Buhari Media Organization, Ali Abdullahi, as well as a legal practitioner, Johnny Agim. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being a part of our conversation this morning.